Before streaming, before Spotify or YouTube, how did people listen to music? From the 1950s to the 1980s, listening to music meant radios, vinyl records, and cassette tapes. If you lived through those decades, you remember something younger listeners almost never experience today: waiting. Not scrolling, not clicking, waiting for the DJ to play that one song, waiting for your allowance to buy that album, waiting for the tape to rewind. And if you were born later, imagine this: music wasn't something you could summon instantly with a tap. There were no playlists that guessed your mood, no algorithms feeding you songs all day, just you, a radio dial, a stack of records, or a cassette you recorded yourself. The sounds had weight, the album covers had meaning, every song felt like a small victory you earned.
This is how people listened to music before streaming changed everything.
In this video, we're traveling back to a time when listening to music meant something very different from today. From console radios in living rooms to vinyl records spinning on turntables, from carefully recorded mixtapes to the thrill of hearing your favorite song on the radio, we'll explore everyday life with music before streaming. Before we really start, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? And did you live through this time, or are you a curious younger viewer? I read every comment. And if you enjoy trips like this back in time, please like the video so more people can find it.
In the 1950s, the radio wasn't just a device, it was a piece of furniture. Console radios stood in living rooms like wooden altars, some the size of a small bookshelf with cabinets of polished mahogany or walnut. Families gathered around them in the evening after dinner, the tubes inside warming up with a soft hum before the sound came alive. You'd twist a large dial, the needle sliding across the AM band through static and crackle, hunting for that one clear station. If you were there, you remember that sound, the faint hiss, then a voice breaking through, then music. DJs felt like friends. Your parents might turn up big band music or crooners like Frank Sinatra and Nat King Cole. News, weather, variety shows, and songs all poured from the same glowing box. The radio brought the wider world right into your home. It told you what was happening, what was popular, what mattered. By the late 1950s, something revolutionary arrived: the transistor radio. Suddenly, music was no longer tied to the living room. These small, battery-powered radios fit in your hand. Teenagers carried them to the beach, the park, their bedrooms. Rock and roll exploded through those tinny speakers: Elvis, Chuck Berry, Little Richard. Parents might complain, but that little radio felt like it belonged to you. If you're younger, picture that shift: music moving from a shared family experience to something personal, something you could carry in your pocket, hold close, and feel like it understood exactly who you were becoming.
Then came the records, vinyl. If you grew up in the 1960s or 70s, buying an album was an event, not a casual click. You saved your allowance or part of your pay. Walking into a record store, the smell would hit you immediately: cardboard, paper sleeves, maybe a hint of incense if it was the right kind of shop. Wooden bins lined the room, divided by genre: rock, soul, jazz, folk. You flipped through them one by one, your fingers brushing the spines, reading band names and album titles. The album cover mattered. You'd slide one out and study it: the artwork on a Beatles album, the prism on Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon, the swirling colors on a Hendrix record. These weren't just pictures, they were part of the story. Inside, there might be liner notes, printed lyrics, photos, sometimes even a poster. You took it home like treasure, slid the record out carefully, held it by the edges to avoid fingerprints, and placed it on the turntable. The needle dropped. For a moment, silence, then a soft crackle, and the music started. Often you sat there with the album cover in your lap, reading every word, studying every photograph. An LP held maybe 10 to 12 songs, and you listened to the whole thing, side A, then flip to side B. Want a specific track? You had to lift the tone arm and try to land it in just the right groove. Miss, and you'd hear the wrong song, or worse, scratch the record. If you'd like a longer, deeper video just about record stores and vinyl culture, tell me in the comments and write longer version. Now, let's go back to the story.
By the late 1970s, cassette tapes changed everything again. If you lived through those years, you remember the cassette deck in your stereo system. Often there were two slots, one for playing, one for recording. You could buy pre-recorded tapes, but the real magic was making your own. You'd record songs from the radio, finger hovering over the record button, hoping the DJ wouldn't talk over the intro, or you'd copy your favorite albums from vinyl onto a blank tape so you could listen in the car or on a portable player. The sound might be a little muffled, a little hissy, but it was your copy, made by your hands. And then there were mixtapes. For younger viewers, imagine spending hours crafting a playlist for someone you cared about, but with no screen. You sat there with your records and your dual cassette deck, choosing each song carefully, recording them one by one. Then you wrote the track list by hand on the cassette insert. The handwriting had to be neat. The order of songs had to be perfect. The tape told a story. It said, "This is how I feel," without you having to say a word. When the tape got tangled, and it always did eventually, you used a pencil to wind it back into place. You cleaned the tape heads, you accepted the little imperfections. The sound wasn't perfect, but that didn't matter. The tape was physical. You could hold it, keep it in a drawer, give it to someone with the words, "I made this for you." In 1979, Sony released the Walkman, a small cassette player with lightweight headphones. Now your mixtape could walk beside you. You could cross town with your own private soundtrack, the outside world fading as the music played just for you. If you spent your youth in the 1960s, 70s, or 80s, you know how powerful music in the car could be. Car radios began appearing in the 1950s, mostly AM, with rough, crackling sound. Static jumped in when you drove under bridges or too far from the station. But by the 1960s, FM radio arrived in cars, and suddenly everything sounded clearer. You'd twist the dial while driving, searching for a good station. When a great song came on, you'd turn the volume up. Windows down, hair in the wind, the music wrapped around you. The song became part of the road itself. By the late 1960s and 70s, 8-track players appeared in some cars, those chunky cartridges that clicked and faded mid-song as they switched tracks. They were clumsy but new and exciting. Then cassettes took over the dashboard. Long road trips finally had real soundtracks. You packed a shoebox full of tapes, each one labeled. Favorite albums, mixes from friends, songs recorded off the radio. For anyone who grew up with GPS and streaming, try to imagine driving with no map on a screen and no app choosing songs for you. Just you, the road, the sky ahead, the radio, and your tapes. Sometimes you'd lose a station and surf for another. Sometimes you'd replay the same cassette the whole way there and back. Those drives could feel endless, in the best possible way. Music in the car meant freedom and possibility. Every journey had its own rhythm, and certain songs are forever tied to the memory of a highway, a sunset, or the lights of a town coming into view. Here's something that people who didn't live through this era might not fully understand. You couldn't hear a song whenever you wanted. If you loved a track, you had 3 choices: buy the record or cassette, wait for it to play on the radio, or hope you hit record at the right moment to catch it on tape. And that waiting, that was part of the magic. You turned on your favorite station and listened. Sometimes you waited an hour, sometimes longer. When the DJ finally announced the song you'd been hoping for, your heart jumped. You turned the volume up. Maybe you sat perfectly still. No skipping, no scrolling, no pausing. Just you and those few minutes of music. If you lived through this time, you remember that flood of excitement when the first chord hit. The DJ's voice just before the track could make it feel like a special announcement meant for you alone. There was no quick replay.
If you missed it, you waited again. So you listened closely. Every note mattered. For younger viewers, that might sound inconvenient, almost frustrating. But here's the truth. Because music took effort, it meant more. Every record you bought, every mixtape you built, every song you waited for on the radio turned into a memory. The music you loved wasn't just sound, it was time, it was patience, it was care. And when you finally heard that song, it felt like a moment you had truly earned. This is how people listened to music before streaming, before downloads, before instant access to every song ever made. It was slower and it took work, but that effort created a kind of connection that's hard to reproduce today. Connection to the music itself, to the friends and family you shared it with, and to the exact moments when a song played and changed everything for a little while. If you lived through these decades, maybe this brought back memories of afternoons in record stores, evenings recording tapes, or long drives with the windows down and the radio loud. And if you're younger, maybe now you understand a little better why people who grew up before streaming feel such deep nostalgia for those days. Thank you for walking back in time with me. Tell me in the comments, what surprised you the most, and what did you enjoy remembering from your own life? And if you want a full 30 to 40-minute version of this story, let me know as well.